Hello. Oh my goodness, we're back. It's been a while since I've done an episode and the team were like, Shell, you forgot to record an intro. And so I'm recording this intro on my phone. So if the audio doesn't sound good, don't worry. The rest of the conversation is recorded in the studio with the proper mics. It's all going to be beautiful audio once I finish this intro. But I just want to say we're covering three things on today's podcast episode. The first, we're talking about the difference between your best self and your stressed self. And often people don't realize they're in the stress zone until they kind of get to a really critical moment. And we want to work out the difference and we want to spot the signs early. Second thing we're covering is the manager hat. That's just a little clue. I'm not going to say anything more about that. And we're going to have an honest conversation about mum guilt. I'm going to share something that happened recently that was pretty wild and out of the ordinary, and just have a vulnerable conversation about how to navigate, or how I'm finding the tension between career and parenting life. And I feel like maybe it's going to resonate with a few people. It'll be raw and real, that part of the conversation, but you know what? I think it's something that it's worth talking about. So that's enough of this iPhone quality audio. Let's get into the proper pod. Thanks for hanging out.
This is a podcast about making work work. You'll learn about leadership, career growth, and how to navigate those weird work challenges. I run a HR consulting business called Boldside, where I help leaders build epic team cultures. If you lead a team or run a business and you think I can help, let's connect on LinkedIn. My name is Shelley Johnson, and this is Work. I was running an executive offsite the other day, and we did this session on the difference between your best self and your stressed self. And I was thinking about you, wherever you are, and going, you know what, this would be really good for our pod listeners. So I want to do something with you, do a little activity where we think about the difference between your best self and your stressed self. I think a lot of us know what we look like when we're under stress. But interestingly, I don't think many people know, what do I look like when I'm at my best? And so I want to give you the opportunity to look at both sides. And it's kind of like, how do I understand the conditions that help me become my best self? And how do I notice in the early stages when I'm slipping into that stress self zone? So I do think we've got these two sides to us, and stress is just a part of life. We all experience it. But what do we look like when we're in that zone? And the beauty of doing this with teams is I love when teams uncover this about one another. So like in my team recently, we did like an offsite. It was really fun. We got together and everyone did their strengths assessment. If you know me, you'll know I love Clifton Strengths. So it's by Gallup. And it's your top 5 strengths that you bring to work. And so we all did our top 5 strengths, and then we all looked at what do the strengths look like when they're overplayed. And so, for example, one of our team has positivity, and positivity as a strength when it's overplayed can be blind optimism. And one of our other team members, Em Bowen, who you know, who's been on this pod, who hosted this pod back in the day, one of her amazing strengths is responsibility, but the dark side of responsibility strength, and she won't mind me saying this because she said it before, is dying for a deadline. Like it's just like, I will do anything to get that deadline met. And so each of us have what we look like at our best. And then I want you to think about my best self and my stressed self. What do those things look like? What do I look like at my best? And I want you to let's start with the negative, right? Because I think we can invert this. What do you look like under stress? And sometimes the best way to capture this is ask the people who are closest to you. Sam, my husband, would say, when I'm under stress, I go into a bubble, and it's hard to, I will struggle to articulate what I need, and I don't like people to help me. So I want you to think about someone in your world will be able to accurately tell you what you look like when you're under stress. And so a couple of things that I want you to do here. What are the conditions that cause you to be in your stressed self zone? What are the conditions? So look for some triggers. And they tend to fall into 3 categories. So they'll fall into mental, emotional, and physical. So when you have what are the things that make you feel mentally stressed? So for me, context switching, going from, let's say, facilitating a workshop with leaders to like admin, like emailing. Oh my gosh. I'd say, oh my gosh, because I find it like that zone of like really, I find that zone really draining. And then going into like a sales call or whatever, like context switching can be for me quite stressful. Like, how do you quickly switch gears? I want you to think about, under the mental category, what are the things that cause you to feel stress? Under the physical category, what are the things that lead to you going into that stressed self zone? So could be lack of sleep, could be lack of exercise, could be too much exercise, whatever that is. I mean, I know a lot of people at the moment talking to me about HIIT workouts causing their cortisol levels to go up and them being more stressed. So I'm just like, well, what is it? Is it exercise or not? I don't know. But what are the things that cause you in both the mental, physical, and emotional category to get into the stressed zone? One that would be really relevant for me in the emotional stress would be unresolved conflict. If there is unresolved conflict on a team, in a relationship, just something that's just lingering, I can't. Like, that would just be so present on my mind and it will weigh me down. I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, all that stuff. So I want you to think about, when I'm in my stressed self zone, what does that look like? What are some of the things? What are the conditions? What are the triggers? What would get me into that space? And conversely, now we flip it. What do you look like at your best? So best self, stressed self. That's what we're answering. What do you look like at your best? And the reason why I say do this one second is because people have a hard time of articulating this. We have automatic negativity bias that causes us to be hardwired to think about what we're not good at, but we have a hard time of acknowledging, what do I look like at my best? So I want you to think about these questions. What would people say about you when you're in your best self zone? What would they say you do? And there should be themes. So you're going to try and listen to the themes over the course of your last few years of your career. And I don't care how self-critical you are. People will have told you themes, things that you are good at, things that you do exceptionally well. What are they? What are the themes that you've heard? So I'm thinking about, I'll use Em on our Boldside team, our general manager, Em Bowen, who also podcast host on this pod. One thing that she does exceptionally well is she makes really strategic decisions and is able to factor in a stack of different perspectives. And she makes pragmatic decisions without getting caught up in emotion, which is very different to me. But I think I would say oh my gosh, how do you do that? Now, when you're good at something, you think everyone's good at it. It's weird. It's called the curse of knowledge. So if you're good at something, you might think it comes naturally. So you're like, oh yeah, surely everyone can do this. It's like, no, they can't. Like, the way that I look at Em, I'm always so in awe of how she makes pragmatic decisions, how she can think about things from multiple angles. She's got a really good systems thinking brain, so she sees how all the pieces fit together and comes up with this amazing, efficient process to match. And I'm like, how did you do that? But for her, she would probably be like, oh, this comes with a level of ease because it is a strength. So the reason why I think people struggle to articulate what they look like at their best is because we assume that the thing that we're really good at, other people can just do. It's cognitive bias. It's like we think and we make assumptions like, oh, this is really easy for me, and so it must be easy for everyone. No, it isn't. So I want you to think about the themes, and usually I would say there's three. There should be three. There should be three themes. Three themes is hard to say. It's like a tongue twister. You will find three themes for yourself of things that people say you do exceptionally well. That's what you look like at your best self. I want you to know them. And the reason why I want you to know them is because I want you to be able to see, this is what I look like at my best, and what are the conditions that help me get into that zone? What do I need to be in that space? And in the same way, if we look at those mental, physical, and emotional states that help you be your best self. So for example, for me, in the physical zone, if I'm my best self, I really do need 8 hours of sleep. I do not cope without interrupted sleep. I'm like a zombie. So sleep is just ridiculously important for me being my best self. In terms of the emotional category, I need to be able to talk through problems. That helps me be my best self. So if there's a challenge at work, I need to be able to verbally sound it out with someone. If I'm just holding that in, that triggers the stress level. So being able to ideate with other people really helps me be my best self, as well as in the mental category, having space for deep work. How do we have space for deep work? And if I have those things kind of in place, I will find I'm much more able to be my best self. So I want you to think about, for you, write down in your notes app again, and I'm so big on self-reflection. I think it's a really important part of your career growth. What do I look like at my best? So your best self and then your stress self. What do I look like under stress? And you're going to break it down into those categories: mental, emotional, and physical for both. What are the conditions mentally, emotionally, and physically that help me be my best self? As well as what are the conditions mentally, emotionally, and physically that lead to or cause me to get into that stress zone where I don't show up in the way that I think is helpful or the way that I would like to. And then just simply understanding those conditions can be the things that you need to go, how do I become more aware of when I'm tipping into one zone or the other, and how do I course correct? So a thing we ran with an exec team, my best self, stress self. The reason why it's awesome, again, to run with teams is that you're building your understanding of one another. So it's not just for your benefit. It's also understanding. And when a healthy team knows, like for me, I would be able to, I know M or any of my team will be able to pick when I'm in my best self zone or when I'm in my stress self zone. Like they'll be able to see. In the same way, we want to know that about each other. Now, some people are more obvious than others. They have easier tells, but I want us to be able to be a team. I want you to have a team where you can actually help one another with this, that it's not just individuals having a course correct, but it's us being aware of each other and going, hey, I noticed you don't seem yourself. And what can I do? How can I help? That level of self-awareness, but also other awareness, so team peer awareness, to me is just so helpful, and it's what healthy teams do. Also, I just want to say on this idea of stress, Mark Manson has this amazing quote, and I'm going to read it to you. You're not stressed from doing too much. You're stressed from doing too little of what you care about. And I think about that because what I hear all the time, all week long, is team members being like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm fatigued, I'm exhausted, I have too much on my plate, I can't cope. And I think I come back to this. It's not about it. You doing too much. It's about doing too little of what's important, too little of what you care about that is causing stress. So that's why I think it's really important that we evaluate our workload regularly. We evaluate what we're focusing our energy on and going, okay, is this work driving real value? Is it driving impact?
Do you want to grow in your career? Are you after a fresh start or some inspiration? Or perhaps you're in a career crisis? The book Sort Your Career Out and Make More Money by Shelley Johnson and Glenn James is such a great resource at any stage in your career. It will give you practical strategies for things like getting a promotion, making more money, moving into a leadership role, taking career risks, or if it's time to quit your job, and so much more. You can find Sort Your Career Out and Make More Money wherever good books are sold or via the link in the podcast show notes. It's also available as an audiobook.
Okay, this one is for the people managers. You need to know, if you are a people manager, you are contagious. I have a really important message for you. You are contagious. And if you're like, no, I don't know that I am. I'm feeling really good today. Like, what do you mean? You are contagious. You are emotionally contagious. Just let that sit with you. Great affirmation for today. And if you're in a leadership role, you are extra contagious. Like you are the most contagious person on your whole team. And I want you to sit with this idea. Just bear with me for a sec. Okay, so side note, I was on a plane trip, I can't remember where from, and it was super turbulent, like super turbulent. And I'm not a good flyer. Like I'm just not a good flyer. And I have been practicing my box breathing because someone told me to do that when I get nervous on a plane. And so I was doing my box breathing. I must have been quite loud or obnoxious or just obvious that I wasn't coping. And the guy who was sitting next to me, and it was one of those little planes, the propeller ones, anyway, he's sitting next to me and he's like, you're making me really nervous. And I was like, first of all, don't interrupt my box breathing, mate, because I'm in the zone. But I was like, oh, sorry, but I am nervous. I'm nervous because I don't know, I'm on the plane and it's really turbulent. And he goes, well, virtually no planes crash from turbulence. And he's like a FIFO worker. So obviously he's on a plane a lot. But it did get me thinking about this idea of how your emotions are so contagious. And this idea is not mine. It's called the emotional contagion. And it is a known fact that how you show up, the emotions you bring, they are going to be spread across your team. And so I'm on this plane sitting next to a complete stranger. I'm doing my box breathing in the privacy of my little seat, 7A, and he is sitting next to me and he's just getting this wave of anxiety from me. You're welcome, mate. Anyway, and then I got me thinking about, and I've been on so many dodgy flights lately that I feel like I'm having to regularly practice my breathing exercises. And I looked at him and I thought, okay, I'm sorry for passing on my anxiety. And then I looked up to the flight attendants and we're on this really bumpy flight and they're just in cruise mode. They're just chilling. They're laughing. They're out the front. They're having a good old chat with one another, talking about all this stuff. And I'm looking at them. And as I look to them and I see them super calm, super chilled, I'm like, oh, they're okay. And if they're okay, I'm okay. And in the same way that my stress on the plane is contagious to the person sitting next to me, these flight attendants' calm, collected presence is also contagious. And if you were to look at a flight attendant on a turbulent flight and they are freaking out and they're anxious and they're doing their box breathing, every single person on that flight is going to be freaking out and they're going to be stressed because they're like, you're the one who's supposed to be calm. And in the same way, every single team member, every single employee, you are contagious. Your emotions are contagious. So if you show up with great positive energy, you're contagious. If you show up with a defensive mindset, it's contagious. If you show up with a really high level of stress, it's contagious. However, or maybe not however, but adding to that, if you're in leadership, you're like the flight attendant and people look to you as the barometer of, are we good? Are we okay? And if you are consistently stressed, if you are consistently moody, frustrated, defensive, all of those things, your emotional state is even more powerful, even more contagious. So it's the idea of when the flight attendants are calm, we're all good. But if the flight attendants aren't good, none of us are good. And you've got to know, if you're in a leadership role, you've got to take responsibility for how you show up. If you are showing up and you are not conscious of the presence that you bring, the tone that you set, guess what? Your whole team are adopting whatever that tone is. Every team member is, but leaders, extra contagious. And so I want you to be mindful, how am I showing up? Is that the presence that I want to bring to this team? Is that the mood or tone I want to set with my people? Am I the calm, composed flight attendant, or am I the one box breathing, strapping themselves in and being like, every man for himself? I've never seen that, by the way. I'm just imagining, what would they do? I've never seen a stressed flight attendant, which is awesome. Credit to Qantas. Point number 2, you are contagious. And you get to choose how you show up. We're not passengers. And so I do think this has just been something I've been really wrestling with. And I'm also mindful of if every leader was conscious about how they're showing up and owned their emotional state, was aware. And this is why that first point of your understanding what you look like when you're stressed matters, Because where I think leaders go wrong and where team members go wrong is they actually aren't aware when they're contagious. They aren't aware of how their emotional state impacts others. And so being aware, building your self-awareness to go, okay, when I am under stress, this is what tends to happen. This is the impact I can have. Even if it's not your intent, we still have this impact on others. How do I bring that to my conscious awareness so that I can manage that in a more healthy and constructive way? Idea number 3, be the wild card. I have been thinking a lot about in an interview process or in a recruitment process, sometimes there's a wild card. Sometimes there's a person that just is like, you know what? I don't think you tick the boxes, but there is something about you that stands out to me. And I would love more people to go through recruitment processes owning the fact that they're a wild card. Because I think what happens is people rule themselves out too early. They'll look at an interview process and they'll be like, or a recruitment process, and they'll look at the application and they'll be like, nah, I don't tick that criteria. And I know that like in surfing, if you follow the WSL, and they have their wildcard entries, and sometimes these wildcards, the cool thing about them is that they just cause the big upset and no one expects it. And I think there is something really powerful about being underestimated, about being the one people take a risk on and backing yourself in that and going, you know what, I can be a wild card. If you're going through a big recruitment process right now, if you see a job that you really want, you're telling yourself, I don't have what it takes, just remember that I love how in elite sports, we have these wildcard entries that cause a big upset and everyone loves those people. I think also owning it can be really cool. Like the awareness of when you're a wild card can be really cool. And the way you could frame it in a confident way in an interview process of going, hey, look, like I know if you were to look at me on paper against the criteria, it might feel like a bit of a wild card. But I also know that some of the best candidates are the ones that you don't expect, the ones that people underestimate. And so how do you own that in an interview process of going, hey, I'm a wild card, but the cool thing about a wild card is that you get much more than you bargained for. And I mean, I also feel people rule themselves out way too early. Like they rule themselves out of a process. And it can be in anything. It could be a promotion. It could be a recruitment process. It could be an opportunity at work that's a stretch assignment or a stretch project that you're like, no, I don't have what it takes. And I'm like, no, be the wild card. Like do it. Be underestimated. There's so much power in being underestimated. So someone listening today, I believe, needed to hear that. And that is for you. Idea number 4, and this one is for people managers. If you've ever said the phrase, I'm going to put my manager hat on now, I want to tell you strongly, you don't need to do that. You don't need to put on the friend hat and the manager hat. And this is where people typically use the manager hat. It's when they have built a really good relationship with the people that they lead and they decide, you know what, I'm really close with this person. They're like my friend. They're like my mate. But then they have to have a difficult conversation with that person. And so they think, oh no, I need to like somehow signal that we have to have a tough conversation. So the only way I can signal it is I need to change roles. I need to stop being a friend and I need to start being a boss. I am so, this idea of I have to switch roles to me is really unhelpful for a couple of reasons. I think it lands in a disingenuous way. So it's almost like for the person on the receiving end of that, if my manager, who I've built a really good relationship with and I consider them to be friends, says, okay, Shell, I'm going to take my friend hat off and put my manager hat on. To me, what that says is I care about you as a friend, but I don't care about you when I'm in the manager role. And that's just not true. Managers care about people. And I also think it's so one-dimensional. Relationships are not one-dimensional. They have all these different facets to it. So I've worked for managers who I'd consider a friend, and they've still been able to have tough conversations with me. And I've had long-term friendships with them outside of the workplace and been able to have those honest conversations. And the reason why is because I knew they cared about me. They cared about me, they cared about my success, and they cared about the workplace. And so the way I would frame it, if you're struggling, if you're friends with the people that you lead and you're struggling to have those difficult conversations, don't use the manager hat. I'm going to put my manager hat on. I want you to put the manager hat in a drawer and never, ever get it out again. I want you to put the manager hat in one of those clothing bins, and someone else can pick it up, just not you. So what I want you to do instead of the manager hat is I want you to call out the tension. And I think this is much more mature. It's a much more mature way to deal with it. And here's how it works. So let's say I'm a people manager. I've just been promoted to people manager. I've stepped from peer into that leader role. And I'm struggling to make that transition because all the people that I am now leading have been my peers for the last couple of years. And I had to have a tough conversation with someone who hasn't met their performance goals. So the way that I would position this is I would say something like this. I'd just call out the tension. Hey, Jack, I just want to call out the tension now in my role that I'm struggling with a bit. One thing is I really care about you. I care about our friendship. I care about your success in the role. And I know that in my role, I also have to make sure that we're delivering these business outcomes. And so that means at times we're probably going to have really honest conversations if things aren't met. And so I just want to frame that from the outset now that I've taken on this new role, that there's a little bit of a tension that I'm going to live between, the tension of caring about you and the tension about caring about the business results. And so what that looks like is that we're going to have really honest conversations, but I always want them to come from a place of care. And I want you to feel that you can expect that of me, that I care so much about you as a person and I care about the success of the team. And so that's why we're going to have these really honest conversations. Is that okay? So what you've done there is before any issue has ever come up, you're front loading the expectation that, hey, Jack, we've been mates for ages. We've been peers. Now my role's changed and I've got this tension that I'm going to have to live between of us having a really close working relationship and me now leading the team. I'm going to live between that. I have to navigate that tension. That's part of the role, but we're going to have honest conversations and that's what you can expect from me. So by front loading that expectation before any issues happen, you've done heaps of the heavy uplift already because you've just called out, hey, this is the role now. This is how I'm going to do it. And I just want to let you know. Now, I believe every time you set the expectations, that just is so helpful. And it is so helpful to do before there's an actual problem. Let's say you haven't done that and there is now a live issue. You're like, oh, I haven't set that expectation and now there's an issue and now I don't know how to tackle it. Totally fine. Here's what you do. You're going to sit down with Jack in a one-on-one and you're going to say, hey, Jack, I need to have this conversation with you about some of the deliverables. I just want to call out, I find this a little bit tricky. And the reason why is because I feel like I've got this tension between two things. I care about you, I care about your success, and I really value our relationship. And I also know at the same time in my role, the expectations of me are that I have to make sure the team delivers. And I've noticed we've had some gaps and I need to have a conversation with you about that. I know this is tough because it's just not an easy conversation to have, but I want us to step into that space. Can we have that conversation? So a couple of things in that. You're acknowledging with maturity, it's not an easy conversation to have. You're saying, I care about you, Jack, and I care about the deliverables, and we need to have both things present. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can care about someone and have a tough conversation. And in fact, the best relationships do both. The best working relationships are built on the premise of both care and challenge. Both need to coexist. So I want you to use some of that language as opposed to, I've got my manager hat on now, and then, I'm going to take that off, and now I'm going to be the friend. How did you feel about that? Are you okay? Like, that's weird. I don't think when we think about like the nature of our relationships, they're multidimensional. They can have different expectations built in. They're complex. That is okay. Call out the complexity. Call out the tension. Treat people like adults. Treat people with maturity and they will rise to that. But treat people like they don't get the complexity of the dynamic. And then I think that becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where if we go, oh, well, these people can't cope with the fact that I've been their friend for ages and now I'm their manager, that to me is where we run into problems. Idea number 4, and this is a bit vulnerable, but I'm going to share it because it's been on my mind. I've been trying to put words to it. So when I have this, like, I've been trying to write words down on a page about this and I've struggled. So I'm going to verbally process it with you, but it's vulnerable and I think maybe it'll be helpful for some people. I've been thinking about the verdict that working mums need is not guilty. You know, in a trial, any True Crime Pod listeners will know this, that at the end of the trial, the judge will decide or the jury will decide guilty or not guilty. And that's the verdict. The verdict lands. Are they guilty or are they not guilty? And I think for a lot of working parents and particularly working mums, and I'll speak from my own experience, we have given ourselves a verdict of guilty, just constantly guilty. And I don't know that mum guilt serves us. And I think there's a couple of things that have been really relevant, have been really present on my mind lately. I had this really weird interaction. I posted this thing on LinkedIn that I was in Melbourne. I'd run a couple of workshops and I just said, back of an Uber, thoughts from my week in Melbourne, blah, 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 and just had some thoughts about leadership or something. And this guy comments, oh, I laughed, but it was actually really painful. This guy comments on it and he was like, is it really leadership if you never see your kids, if you're never home and you never see the people who need you most? Is it really high performance if you're not at home with your family or something to that effect? Pretty much that was the comment. And I saw it and I was like so rattled. And I think I was rattled because that feeling of mum guilt has been something that I have had for a long, long time. And we have set our family up in a way that works for our work lives. So Sam, my husband's a stay-at-home dad. He's absolutely amazing. He is the best dad in the world and he is at every single school thing, every single sport thing, all the things. And I travel a lot for work and we've been in startup phase of growing this business and I was like, I just saw it and I sent it straight to Sam and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and there was so much that I was processing as I saw this person's horrible comments and they doubled down, so they went even further and it's not worth going into all the stuff that they said, but it was so hectic. And I remember thinking at the time, so this, I don't know, it was a couple of months ago, there are two things. So there's your personal sense of guilt, of am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing a good job as a mum? Am I doing a good job in my career? So there's that. There's the personal feeling that you get. And then there's the social feeling or the cultural trends or norms. So you've got dual pressure, the personal pressure that you place on yourself to be the best parent in the whole world as well as the best career person in the whole world. And then there's the social pressure of the norms, the trends, those expectations that a rando like that posts on your thing being like, are you really leading if you're never at home with your kids? Just like so hectic. And I think like we carry enough guilt without needing the social shame or those kind of norms that I'm just like, that's just outdated. Like, I don't get it. And I keep coming back to this idea of how does this guilt, is it useful? Does it serve us? And is it even guilt? Because guilt, as far as emotions go, is useful. So when you do the wrong thing, and let's say you lie to someone and you feel guilty for that and you feel genuinely remorseful, that is a helpful emotion. Shame is different because shame, and that's what I think, that's certainly what was happening in this moment of this person, like just publicly shaming. But also, I think a lot of parents will say, a lot of mums will say, I've got mum guilt. I'm like, no, you have mum shame. Like you feel that you are never living up to the expectations. You are never good enough, that there's a level of shame attached to it. And if we think about the definition of shame, I'm going to read it to you. So unlike guilt, which focuses on a specific behavior, I did something bad, shame focuses on self, I am bad. So let's just unpack this. Let's say you're running late from work and you got to the bus stop late and you feel bad because you were late to arrive at the bus stop to pick your kids up. That's guilt about a behavior. I was late. I got to the bus stop late. I feel bad about that. Versus I am bad. I am a bad mum. Or I feel bad about how I showed up as a parent today versus I am a bad parent. And I think this idea of when people say I've got mum guilt, I'm like, no, I think you have mum shame, and I think that's different. And I don't know why, but because this thing has been such a recurring theme over the last 5 years, where I've noticed this trend and I've just felt like, I don't know, do we talk about this enough? Do we talk about how challenging it is for working parents to try and do both really well and to feel like they're never enough? And so for me, I just feel like this is a conversation I want to have more of with people. I want to be able to challenge that narrative that your family can be amazing and look different to the next person's. And you can have an amazing career and be an amazing mum. You can have an amazing career and be an amazing parent. And people like that person that commented on that post that perpetuate that cycle or that narrative of shame, to me, is just so unhelpful. And I just want to be able to go, how do we challenge that? And how do we step into a space where, for so many ambitious women who listen to this pod, who are super career driven, and then they struggle with this sense of, is it okay that I'm like this? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I not enough? Is that okay? And I just want to be like, yes. I don't know. I've talked about this whole story, a little bit of my journey with processing some of the challenge of building a career and showing up as a parent and doing both of those things, and the tension and the struggle that it sometimes is. And I've spoken openly and vulnerably about that a couple of times over the years. But for some reason, I just feel like maybe there is more conversation that needs to happen in this space. And so I say this as a thought bubble, as it were. I don't have any solutions. I don't have any advice. I feel, though, that maybe this conversation is important for people. And if you're there feeling like you're struggling with this, I hope you feel validated that I've personally found this space extremely challenging. And I do genuinely feel that the verdict that mums need is not guilty. I don't know how we get there, but maybe having more of these conversations helps. Being able to talk openly and vulnerably about it helps. And so I wanted to say that on the basis that I work with so many amazing women who are running their own business, who are CFOs, who are in exec roles, who are founders, and they too have struggled with this stuff. And I'm like, well, How do we create the space to go, well, to learn from one another, to bounce off one another when we have these challenges? And also, one thing that I really loved on a positive note is that so many people piled on and just absolutely slammed that guy and his ridiculous comments, which was amazing. Like, it was just so funny. I think maybe upwards of 40 comments in response to him. And then I would have had I can't even tell you how many messages from people being like, hey, keep going, keep doing the thing. Coming back to this idea of parenting guilt or parenting shame, the idea of shame is that feeling that there is something wrong with who you are, and the idea of guilt is that there's something wrong with what you just did, what you've done. It's associated with an action. Guilt is associated with an action. Shame is associated with a way of being, with an identity. And so if you feel your identity is I'm never good enough, I am not good enough, to me, that's not helpful. It's not useful. And so I hope in a more vulnerable, more authentic, I didn't have any notes. I just wrote down on my little page, the verdict mums need, not guilty. That's all I had. I usually have dot points for what I want to talk to you about, but I just felt I'm going to have that conversation with you. And if that lands with you, amazing. And if this is something that you have struggled with, message me on LinkedIn, message me on Insta, Boldside. You can find us. I would love to hear from you. And I hope it encourages you today. You're enough. You are enough. And keep doing the thing. Keep driving. Be ambitious. Get it, girl. We always end on something weird, don't we, where I just sprout off a random one-liner at the end. But you know what? I just want to say thanks for hanging out. And I could talk all day long with people about work. I think that these conversations are really important. We spend so much of our life at work. And so getting into some of those big, deep issues that relate to work, as well as some of those practical actions that you can take away, I hope that's helpful to you. If it is, DM me on LinkedIn. I want you to do two things. I want you to, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. Share it with a working parent who needs to hear it. Share it with a manager who needs to stop talking about the manager hat. Share it with your boss who's very stressed and they're contagious. And then I want you to, if you can, give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple. And we'll chat soon. Thanks for hanging out.
If you have enjoyed the show today, forward it to a friend, colleague, or family member who you may think it would benefit. Shelley's business Boldside provides leadership training for a variety of different businesses. To learn more, visit boldside.com.au. If you would like to book Shelley to speak at one of your events, please reach out to the team via moneypodcast.com.au.